Doing great, thanks. How did you get started in this line of work?
Well, I'm not doing this today. This was a kind of a moment in time back really during most of the 80s. I got hired by an alternative newspaper in Minneapolis and Minneapolis-St. Paul area, and their focus was entertainment, pop culture, and sort of the alternative news way of looking at the news. Eventually, I became sort of their movie guy. And one day, not long after I was there, I got a call from a PR agency in Minneapolis who asked if I wanted to, had any interest in going out to New York and interviewing the cast and crew and directors of the latest James Bond movie, which I think was The Spy Who Loved Me, Roger Moore, And, I said, well, yeah, I guess I would, but how exactly does this work? And they said, well, we cover everything. We'll get you out there. We'll put you up at a place. It's not the Motel 6 with roaches or anything like that. Be very comfortable. You'll enjoy it. And we'll even feed you. And there might be free drinks involved. So I said, well, I don't know. I guess, having giving it 2 seconds thought. Yes, I agree. And so that began. I guess they were happy enough. It's a publicity thing. I wrote a story about talking to Roger Moore and Cubby Broccoli and the producers. And, it was, I was sort of, the goggle-eyed innocent at that point, just, thrilled to meet the famous people. They liked the story. So they called and asked again for another film, which I forget, but it went on and on and on. Over the years, there were probably 200 of these things that went on through the 80s. Some of them, the studios were pleased with my coverage. Others, they were not. I was thrown off the list at least twice. But it was the go-to thing. You win some, you lose some. So they invited me back. And it only ended when I left the alternative paper to go work for a so-called reputable daily newspaper here in the Twin Cities, which had different rules about accepting free trips and free booze from movie studios.
That's wonderful. So what was your audience like, the people who were watching what you were doing?
Well, I think there were, obviously movie fans who probably read movie reviews, and then these were the little features that would accompany it. And in the midst of this, I also got asked by a local TV station to do the same things for them. And so I would, along with these recordings that we have, voice recordings here, I have a huge stash of video recordings of, talking to some of these same folks. I think the true, serious movie people, fans in the audience were appalled. They wanted, a visual dissection of the mise en scène and all the important things of film coverage. And, so this probably seemed lighter to them. I thought it was striking a balance between the two, and that was the job. So, but.
Was there any individual who had a personal impact on you?
Among the people I interviewed?
Yes, sir.
Well, there were a lot of really pretty interesting people over the years. I remember being fascinated talking to the science fiction writer Arthur C. Clarke, who, is a pretty astute prognosticator of the future and full of fascinating thoughts about, the world in general, science fiction, the future to come, and of course working on movies like 2001. But the list, it is really pretty long. I remember interviewing Elizabeth Taylor at one point. It was like 2 or 3 days after John Lennon was killed. And you could see that, someone like her, as famous as she was deeply affected by something like that. Other kind of personal heroes, the film director Bernardo Bertolucci, he was interesting. That was for, I think his film Last Emperor, which went on to win all the Academy Awards one year. And Oliver Stone after Wall Street had a lot of provocative things to say. And, I mean, and of course, some of the people were provocative and others were, kind of template, interview blather, talking about their fabulous chemistry with their co-stars and stuff. You kind of try to avoid the eye rolls on stuff like that. But, you work with them enough. Robin Williams was probably the funniest thing I've ever sat there. I mean, you think, I forget, it was Good Morning Vietnam. And there was this crazy governor in Arizona at the time, an old car dealer named Ev Meacham. And for some reason, there was a newspaper on the table when I went to talk to Williams. And he just segued from whatever I was asking him into this, this corn pone impersonation of a hick car dealer. And, you're just, you couldn't believe he was coming up with material that good off the top of his head, but that's what he could do. And as an example of, really kind of the talent level that a lot of these people had.
Do you have any advice for the people who are going to be listening to your audio files? Is there any advice that you might have for them?
Well, as you go through these, some of these are me and me alone talking to them. And others there'd be like a group setting. Might be 5 or 6 people at a table with the stars, the directors, or whoever. And I can't account for the depth of questioning for everybody. I tried to do what I could, to make it seem like an adult conversation, adult questions and things like that. But there were a couple of fanboys, and they were, they often. I think I wrote stories sometimes just about the other questions that people asked. Kind of a snobby thing to do, obviously, but what the hell? It was an alternative press, And so as whoever wants to listen to this stuff, it is a kind of time capsule business. It's people out of time. Some of them, many of them are deceased now, but it's an example of how the movie publicity mill works. You can listen to some of these things and kind of get a feel for what was never talked about in the published words.
Right. So how can people hear more from you?
Well, I think you were kind of talking about setting up some kind of a channel that if anybody wants to ask, and I'm happy to respond by email or off the site here that you've set up. And I'm here. I don't mind at all talking about it. Kind of since you and I started talking about this, it's kind of there's a flood of memories coming back. The stuff that I frankly forgotten about over the years, and a lot of it makes me smile.
Very good. Okay, I'm through now. Thank you so much, Brian Lambert.
Thank you, Rick Hammer.
Right.
Thank you.
Take it easy.
Okay.